Waiting at a bus stop can be a real drag. It might be scorching on a sunny day, soaking on a rainy day. There's usually nowhere to sit. But there's a grassroots guerrilla campaign in Nashville and in some other cities to make bus stop life a little bit better. A group called, quite charmingly, To Nashville with Love has built and installed 60 benches at bus stops around Nashville, all without government approval. This DIY urban infrastructure is inspiring and thought-provoking, and not everyone seems to like it. City transit officials have removed at least 17 of the benches, saying they interfered with the right-of-way. So, should citizens improve local infrastructure when government fails to? Does that make cities better? Today, on Your City Could Be Better, I'm joined by Marie Cecile Anderson, host of City Cast Nashville. Hello, Marie. What do these benches look like, and do they make the streetscape of Nashville seem more or less organized and better?
Well, David, I'm glad you asked, because as a daughter of an art teacher, all I see are art installations all across our city. But really, they're just super simple wooden benches designed for comfort. They have kind of a slight lean to them. They're made out of really cheap lumber you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot. But the kicker is that they are painted beautiful colors with super fun artwork. One of my favorite ones looks like a stick of butter. Or another one says Music City, City.
Oh,
and
nice.
then, is that clever? And then also one that I just recently saw, it says The Right to Rest, which really sums up the message behind this movement. And what I also really like about them is that they look intentional. It's obvious that someone took the time and the initiative to put them in that place on purpose where there wasn't a bench before. So it highlights the fact that the city had failed to build a proper bus stop.
And are they usually on sidewalks? Are they next to sidewalks? Are they close to the curb?
They're far away from the street, generally. They're not always on a sidewalk. It's usually in a place where there's no sidewalks, I see. They're on super busy, dangerous streets, at least like 4 feet away from the street itself. A lot of them, the people would be standing in ditches if it weren't for these benches, if that makes sense. Just visualize that for a second.
Yeah, I think I can see that. So what's the group that's building the benches To Nashville with Love, and why did they start doing it?
Well, they are folks who love a little good trouble. They call themselves To Nashville with Love. It's a coalition of clergy, transit and pedestrian advocates, and super passionate people who work with our unhoused community. So what I like about it is that rather than, freezing in despair, these folks were empowered to work together to help their neighbors after seeing these people who, they're seeing elderly people waiting for the bus. They're seeing parents with children waiting for the bus, people who are on their way to work who are about to be on their feet all day. So why it all started, I'm going to tell you a story. Just picture beautiful benches along Korean Vets Boulevard, downtown Nashville. Beautiful benches. But all of a sudden, these benches are removed by Nashville Department of Transportation and the Metro Council member of downtown. They took these benches away and replaced them with hostile architecture in the form of big, beautiful balls. And they claimed that it was for safety reasons, but I think in actuality, it was because they didn't want the tourists to see the unhoused community.
Who had been sleeping on the benches or resting on the benches.
Absolutely. Also, the person who is spearheading this, her name is Pastor Robin L. Owen, and she came on City Cast Nashville and told us about the origin story behind this. And she's super nerdy when it comes to urban planning. She's really passionate about it. She's done all her research, and she is dedicated to this movement and had followed what happened in Buffalo, New York, and Lincoln, Nebraska, and all over California. So she was studying these guerrilla bench building. And then so just as it happened that when they removed the benches from Korean Vets, she had a bench in her trunk ready to go.
Oh,
because
wow.
she had been studying this, and she has some cool friends too here in Nashville. And so on the side, they were kind of making these benches and slowly putting them across the city, which then led to this movement.
So when did they start putting up benches, and then when did the government start removing them?
So I think the timing, okay, so first bench appeared last August, shortly after those benches on Korean vets were removed. In September, she wrote a manifesto and with a list of demands on her blog of just how to help your neighbor and how to host your own bench building party as well. And so when the city removed the benches on Korean vets, they replaced the metro benches with their benches. Sadly, though, NDOT removed these DIY benches and placed them in bench jail, which then some advocates broke these benches out of bench jail. And we had Robin on our show, and it was really interesting because, you know, is NDOT just doing their job? Like, who should we be mad at? You know, that sort of thing. But they met with NDOT, and NDOT in November said, we will not be removing any more of these benches. So it was kind of like a win-win. From what we understand, after they promised to not remove any in November, they did not remove any.
And the government, NDOT, Nashville Department of Transportation, I presume, NDOT is removing them because why?
Well, they're saying that it's obstructing the right-of-way on the sidewalks. But what's crazy is that the full purpose of their movement is to provide accessibility to everyone. And Robin and her crew would never purposely do that.
Have you ever heard a regular person say anything negative about these benches?
No, I haven't. I do wonder, we have a super fancy part of town, as most cities do. I'm not aware that they've been placing these benches in that area of town that prides themselves on uniformity. So I'd be curious what maybe those neighbors would say. But on my side of town, everybody loves them. They brighten up everybody's day when you see them. So I haven't heard any complaints.
So this is not the only city where this has happened. And I was reading about Berkeley, California, where activists have put up more than a dozen benches. And there was a really interesting set of statistics in the article I was reading about this, which said that the volunteers who were putting up these benches were spending about $80 a bench to put them in, but that when the government put in a bus stop bench, they had to do it. They had to spend $3,400 because they were meeting various high standards and it had to conform to certain rules and procedures, which were probably well-intentioned. It's probably like, oh, our bench has to be able to withstand a person who weighs 350 pounds sitting on it with a force of 2.5 pounds per square inch, for 15 hours straight. And it also has to, have a certain kind of bolt, and it has to be X inches high.
They don't want to get sued. They do not want to get sued. Absolutely.
Right. They don't want to get sued.
Right. But here in Nashville, it's wild because we don't have adequate sidewalks. It takes 2 to 3 years to get sidewalks approved. We do not have bike lanes. Like, we are fighting for just accessibility, and it takes years. And like, our full city voted on a plan called Choose How You Move. We want this for our city, but it's just, you got to cross your T's and dot your I's 10 years later.
Do you think the right answer? So this is an example where it's not just that their benches, it's not just that they're useful, they're also a form of art. They're also filled with this clear love and joy has been put into making them. And so who could look at that? It would take a real Scrooge to look at that and say, don't do that. Mm-hmm. But in general, do you think the right answer to government failing to build sidewalks or to put in benches is for citizens to build sidewalks and put in benches?
I love it. I would say yes, certainly in this case. I don't know if that's the answer for every single thing, but these bench building parties are an act of love. They are community building. They're very simple to participate in. And it allows, you to fight for your neighbors. And I think that that's just such a beautiful thing. And here's the kicker. This is also very exciting. So Metro Council just passed legislation this week on its first reading that now allows the guerrilla benches to remain in place. So it shows that our government isn't a monolith. It was NDOT who was removing these benches, and the people made their voices heard, and they've changed legislation.
I also was reading as I was preparing for this about this other interesting thing that you guys have in Nashville for DIY infrastructure, the Tactical Urbanism program that you guys have. What is that?
So we all know like cities are really great at long-term plans. We just talked about this. It takes years for sidewalks. But what's missing is the actual tactics to get things done. So Nashville has this partnership, Tactical Urbanism. It's a partnership with NDOT and our Civic Design Center. It launched in 2024, and it allows regular people to apply with ideas of how to make our city better. So think brighter sidewalks, crosswalks, traffic calming, better lighting under interstate bridges, all that sort of stuff. But participants then receive $20,000 for their project. But the difference between this and the bench building is that getting into the Tactical Urbanism program requires an application and someone who can draw an architectural rendering of what you want to do, and lots of hoops.
So has there been anything built in the Tactical Urbanism program that is of value or is useful or is beautiful?
Absolutely. I mean, lots of bike parking has been added because of people pitching those ideas in what used to be traffic lanes. There's really bright crosswalks now that people have come out and painted. They put in a few bulb outs, which is when they widen the curve around a corner so cars have to take their right turn slower and can clearly see the pedestrians waiting to cross. So they're kind of simple projects, but they're things that I know that are on the horizon. We had Civic Design Center on our show, who then told us about this program, and we're really trying to get people to pitch in their ideas here.
Do you know if other cities have that Tactical Urbanism program? Have you heard of that?
Well, all over Europe, Milan, New York City, even Fayetteville, Arkansas launched a Tactical Urbanism project way back in 2016. So we are behind, but hopefully some of this new bench energy can help us catch up. Shout out to Fayetteville.
A lot of the ideas on Your City Could Be Better are things that are European, actually. It's like they do this in Europe, and now an American city should try it. This is not really a question, but one of my favorite all-time podcast episodes is from 99% Invisible, and it was a segment on guerrilla signage, places where individual citizens put up signs because the world was confusing or the signage that exists was no good. And there's a famous example of an artist who put up a freeway sign on the I-5, which is one of the busiest freeways in Los Angeles and hence in the world. And he put up a freeway sign that was clearer about what you should do. And he absolutely matched to perfection whatever the California highway signage rules were, and just put it up himself. And it went unnoticed for 8 years. Nobody noticed that this sign was just citizen built, had never been approved by any authority, was not done by the and it was taken down for routine maintenance. And when they took it down for routine maintenance, they were like, where did the sign come from? But it's one of these things where it's like you hear a story like that or about the benches and you're like, that is fantastic. That is so great, so useful. A citizen has done something valuable. They've created this beautiful bench. Now people get to sit. And it seems really good. On the other hand, I do think you can imagine a world where citizens took infrastructure entirely into their own hands. And that would be, it would be bad because citizens actually can't, like you couldn't build a street. You could not pave a street, probably you, Marie.
Nope.
If I asked you to pave a street,
right,
you might be able to build a bench that was cute, but you couldn't pave a street. But someone has to pave the street, and that has to be a qualified person.
There are citizens. What I liked about the 99% story is like that 99 Invisible story is that that man was an expert. Like he really was so passionate about that and took the time and, had his friends get involved and put that thing up, and it probably saved lives. So if we're immediately saying like, we don't want citizens to help out, I think we're really missing out. We have to do it. It's about safety. That's what it truly is about. And the people here in Nashville who are doing, To Nashville with Love, like, in my opinion, it does feel like these like modern day superheroes because they care so much about Nashville. Right.
I had this amazing experience in my own neighborhood with a version of this. So I lived across the street from a scrubby park here in Washington, D.C. It has really crummy kids' playground on it, but it was technically part of Rock Creek Park. It was attached to Rock Creek Park, which is a federal national park. And our little stamp of park, it was actually known widely as Mosquito Park because it was so mosquito infested and so unpleasant to be in. And it was really neglected. But some of my neighbors started spending time in it. And every Friday night they would gather and they would play bocce and they would drink. And it became the social hub of the neighborhood. And they, in fact, flattened this area the size of a bocce court, I guess, size of a pickleball court. They flattened it. They swept it. They put like sort of logs as a barrier. And so now there's this lovely place to play bocce. There was a picnic table there. And they would drink and hang out, and they were very welcoming to everybody. And it was a social hub of the neighborhood. It was a pure good. And then the National Park Service showed up and tore it up because it was an unauthorized use. And finally, at this point, I moved out of the neighborhood. But finally, after a whole bunch of back and forth, and I presume like permitting and all sorts of nonsense, they were allowed to rebuild the court months and months later. And so it now exists. But like, what was the point of destroying it? Like, why did they bother? Why can't government know that like this, yes, it may be guerrilla, it may be do it yourself, but it's clearly offering a public benefit. And it's very frustrating.
I mean, that's insane. It's insane. And I actually have another story for you about these benches. So picture this, a beautiful park downtown Nashville. It's called Church Street Park. I used to go there as a kid. Beautiful benches were there for all to sit on. 2011, they took all the benches away. Why? Because they didn't want the unhoused people sitting there. This is like right in the middle of downtown. So not only unhoused people couldn't use them anymore, but any of the people in all the office buildings, or it's actually right across the street from our public downtown, or the downtown public library. So nobody could check out a book and go across the street. But March 30th this year, To Nashville with Love took a team of a couple dozen wooden benches to this park and reinstalled them exactly where the benches were missing. And they hosted a walking tour for people to hear about the history of the bench removal. And also on March 30th, that same day, our downtown library opened again after being closed for almost a year. So it was just this beautiful celebration of right there at Church Street Park.
So these To Nashville with Love bench builders are not deterred. They're going ahead. They're going to keep going.
They're going ahead. And I thank them for it.
What can listeners in other cities take away from our conversation about guerrilla benches to make their city better?
Open your eyes. That's what I want people listening today. Open your eyes when you're going about your city. How easily accessible is it for you? But put yourself in somebody else's shoe. You know, our disabled community, how easily will they be able to get around town? I think it's important to talk to your neighbors because these changes are, again, so simple, and they make such a huge difference.
Let's go to our word on the street segment, Marie. And I want to talk about Nashville tourism, which fascinates me. So in most cities, tourism brings in a wide range of people who are seeking to understand and enjoy a really special place and appreciate it. In New York, you want to see shows, you want to go to great stores, you want to shop there, you want to go to the great restaurants. In D.C., you come and see museums here or tour the White House. In Paris, you go to the Louvre. And if you are a local in one of those cities, and I speak as a person who lives in a city which is a very touristy city, if you're a local, it is definitely annoying to be around mobs of tourists, but they are fundamentally people who are seeking to appreciate your city and its truly special qualities, and usually in a respectful kind of 9 to 5, maybe 9 to 8 way. But then there are a few cities, and I would identify Nashville as being one of them. The paramount example in the U.S., Vegas also, Amsterdam is like this, where the goal of the tourist is not exactly to appreciate the city, but in fact to just have a riotous time, late, noisily, huge amounts of alcohol. It's not really about, sure, let's go go to a bar and listen to some country music or something. But basically, it's like, let's get lit. So it's much harder to love that tourist. This is a long setup, which is how do you, as a Nashvilleite, find ways to love the tourists when the tourists have come to cause chaos?
It's hard. It's really hard. Sometimes I'm embarrassed by it too, because we're clearly having this conversation about our theme park of intoxication. But what I want to just have everybody know about Nashville is that is just a tiny sliver of it. That is like, we've got bad PR going on, I think, because yes, it is being overrun by people coming who really want to have a crazy good time. But it is in an isolated part of town, so you can avoid it if you want to. And what's really special about Nashville is that people are coming from all over the world, not for that controlled chaos. They are coming to Music City for, like you said, country music. And I love to travel. I travel the world. And this summer I was in Croatia on a tiny island talking to this local who could honestly barely speak English, but she had
How much Croatian can you speak, baby?
Zero. Although the more drunk I got, I was trying. But this woman had been to Nashville and her face lit up, and the amount of joy that she had connecting with me about my hometown. And she just loves country music. Country music is known worldwide. And so people are coming to Nashville to support live music. And so we got to hold on to that. And that's what I celebrate. And that's what I love. And
so that is a big portion of the tourist. So it's not all just bachelor party.
No. I mean, and one of my favorite things to do nowadays too is actually to go downtown to some of these hotels, because I've learned about these happy hour specials that they have down there. So I do get to talk to the tourists, and it is like, it's people that are on their honeymoon, or it's people celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary, and they've always wanted to come to Nashville. There are people there for a convention, and they're finally away from their family, and they get to go out for a night with their coworkers that they never get to do. So it's just a fun, you get kind of to take off and have a little vacation from, not having, you're going to have a chaotic fun time. But, I think everybody should have that once in their life at least.
Marie Cecile Anderson, host of City Cast Nashville, thank you for coming on Your City Could Be Better. You should listen to Marie every weekday on City Cast Nashville.
Come on to Nashville.
That's all for today's episode of Your City Could Be Better. I'm your host, David Plotz. Our producers today were Lizzie Goldsmith, Priyanka Tilve, Marie Cecile Anderson, and Whitney Pasterek. Our music is by Carl Christensen. If you are enjoying the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week with another conversation about how your city could be better. See you later, y'all.